Hey guys, Phil Smythe, zonmaster.com, tech entrepreneur, and today I'm here to do a little talk about kind of 6 common things that I see wantrepreneurs or beginning tech entrepreneurs failing to understand. As an aside, I'm not a big fan of the term wantrepreneur, but it works in the title, whatever. I think it's a bit offensive. So I want to talk about these 6 points, how you can kind of overcome your lack of understanding of them, or at the very least, when I tell you, then you'll be aware of them, because I think some of these points people aren't even aware of, which is pretty amazing. So let's get into the 6 points and not drag this out any further. Point number 1 is not understanding that the solution that you make has to be 5 times better than the alternative. Now, yes, 5 times, okay, is kind of an arbitrary thing to say, but the reason I'm saying it like that is that it takes a lot to get people to change. And people really have to see a clear benefit. You know, there's a lot of tools out there, these productivity apps and things like that. And people think that, you know, or the developers of those think that people aren't using them because they're not aware of them or whatever. But the truth is that people aren't using them because they got email, they got a spreadsheet, and they have a piece of paper. And your productivity app just doesn't make a big enough of a difference. And they have to install it, they have to learn it, they have to learn to use it. So you have to break their habit. So all of these things, you really have to come in with something that people go, wow, I've been waiting for that. So think about that. You got to be 5 times better than the alternative. Kind of following on from that, maybe not alternatives, is that you have to realize, recognize, and research, the 3 R's, perhaps I'm coming up with something here. Realize, recognize, and research the competition. You have competition. I think there is nobody who's going into something that will have no competition. Elon Musk has competition trying to send things to Mars. It's, you know, I meet some people, I've met young entrepreneurs here in Japan as well, even over the years. They're saying, I'm like, well, okay, who's your competition? They're like, oh, I don't have any competition, I'm making something new. It's like, you know what? If you think you don't have any competition, you haven't looked hard enough, or you don't really understand what it is you're providing. There's a good example, which is kind of out of the tech space, but it's a good example, I think, anyway. You know, somebody was talking about how they were going to open an Indian restaurant. And, okay, what's your competition? They said, well, I don't have any competition because there's no other Indian restaurants in town. That's thinking that your competition is only going to be Indian restaurants. It's not. It's any restaurant. You know, when you're sitting at home, pre-pandemic, let's pretend the pandemic's not happening. When you're sitting at home, you go, what am I going to eat tonight? You don't start from the point of what Indian restaurant am I going to go to? You get to Indian restaurant. So think about your competition, research your competition, and by the way, competition is great because if you have a competitor, that means that there's some awareness in the marketplace. You know, a long time ago, I started this business called Filmamora. And that was when I was living in Spain. And I think I've talked about this before, but so I had this, you know, I'd gone to visit friends of mine in London, England, and they had a DVD on their desk, and they was like, oh yeah, we joined this service that you can sign up and you choose your DVDs and they send them out to you. This is a long time ago, folks. And I thought, wow, that'd be great. And I was living in Spain, so I thought, you know what? I love movies. I'd love to have a service like that, so I'm going to set up a service like that. So I did set up a service like that. The problem was, nobody understood. Nobody was thinking, oh, if only, you know, I'd love to watch that movie. Let's go and rent it online. I had to build all that awareness. So it was pretty tough. So competition is great, you know. But then you have to do things 5 times better. So there you go. Point number 3 is not understanding how hard it is to do sales and distribution. You should assume that when you launch your product, despite what I'm going to talk about down in point number 6, when you launch your product, the amount of people who are actually going to care about your product hovers somewhere around 0. And you are going to have to spend either time or money, or time and money, or some magic trick to get people to care. And then you're going to have to not only get them to pay attention, you're going to have to onboard them, and you're going to have to figure out how to get all of that happening. It is hard work. As a developer, I should say, I always think, oh yeah, you just got to write the piece of software. This is a problem I think a lot of developer entrepreneurs have. They think that the product is the thing. The product is not the thing. Because if nobody knows about the product, it really doesn't matter, to a certain extent, how good the product is. If you have an amazing store, for example, inside, you know, it's gorgeous and it's got couches and beautiful floors and everything like this, it doesn't matter if nobody comes in the front door. Of course, once you're in the front door, you have to entice people to stay, give them what they want and all of that. But getting people in the front door is really hard. Be aware of that. Number 4, I'm just going down my list here. Sorry, yes, I'm using notes. I'm old. Number 4, not understanding what I can't even say it. Not understanding, I'm not going to edit this video. You're going to get me in raw and I'm rambling. Okay. Not understanding what unit economics are and the cost of distribution and the cost of acquisition. So if you're making something, if you have a product or a service or whatever, and you figure, you know, for each customer, I can have my service. I'm going to talk about services because that's what I do. If I have my service and I know that when I have somebody signed up, for me, you know, they sign up, it only costs me $1, let's say $1 a month to support this customer. And the customer is paying $5 a month. It's like, man, I got $4 a month from every customer. If I just had 1 million customers, I'd be making $4 million a month. But you have to think about how much does it cost you to get that customer? If you have to spend like $7 in ads to get a customer that you're only making $4 on, you're actually losing $3 per customer. This is not bad news. I'm not saying you want to be in a business where there's zero cost of acquisition, because there is no such business, but you know, you don't want to be in a business like that. You don't have to strive for that. You just have to be aware of it. So, you know, if it costs you $1 to support them and they're paying $5 a month, you know you can only really spend a couple of bucks to get that person, or you have to charge more money. So there you go. Just be aware of unit economics, cost of acquisition, and so on. Number 5, I love this one, is that, you know, have you done something and your friends are like, man, that's awesome, I'd buy that. You know what? Your friends aren't going to buy it. I could have a good example here. I wrote a book. It's a fiction book. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying go and buy it, though. I'll probably put a link in the description down there. But I wrote this book, and nobody bought it. Nobody read it. I know a couple of my friends, great friends, and I appreciate you. They bought it, but you know, I don't even think my family bought it. You know, so it's, you know, people will say they're going to buy it. People, even if you do a survey and things like this, people will say they do it, but they won't, most of them. So it's easy to answer a survey. It's hard to put down your credit card, whether they're a friend or a stranger. So be aware of that. You know, your friends are not going to be customers, more likely than not. And to be honest, your friends are going to want it cheap too. So, final one. Let me get a drink of cold coffee here. Final point is, before you launch, you want to DeRisk. You want to, it's like de-icing a plane before you take off. You want to get rid of any chance, or nah, I was going to say you want to get rid of any chance of failure, but that's stupid, because if you have a business, of course you have a chance of failure. You want to reduce the basic chances of failure by doing something before you launch. You know, that's what the beauty of Kickstarter is. People think that Kickstarter is a great way to launch, but it's not. It's a great way to find out if people are actually interested and willing to put down some money. You know, do I say you know a lot? I think I might. When I was young, back when we were making actual software that you sold on floppy disks or CD-ROMs, if you were fancy, we had this concept called vaporware. And I remember being in a car driving with Guy Kawasaki. It's a true story. And he was talking about the beauty of vaporware. And that you can tell people you're gonna build something and launch something and start charging money for it, make it an exclusive club, and you can gauge you know, whether this idea is going to fly or not. This is back in the 1980s, by the way. Whether this idea is going to fly or not. But more important than that, perhaps, is that you can see if it's not going to fly, what tweaks you can make, or even complete pivots you have to make to get that idea out there. To be honest, if you have an idea, whatever you might think, you're probably not that unique of a person. So if the idea is interesting to you, there are probably people who the idea is interesting to. So you have two things. You can either work hard to find those people, which you're going to have to do. So you're going to try to find those people, and maybe tweak it a little bit just because there's maybe more people who are interested in this kind of version or that kind of thing. Or as you're developing it, you might say, wow, I never even thought about this feature, and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, you have to de-risk pre-launch. Okay? I hope this is helpful. These are just my ramblings. I'm leaving this video like this because that's just the way I am, and I don't want to cut it down too much. So if you like these kinds of videos, why don't you like and subscribe, however that is underneath the screen. You can hit the bell notification so when I put out videos, I don't put out a lot of videos, but I'm trying to do more, but I go like this, you know, because I'm busy. But if you're a tech entrepreneur, especially if you're interested in Ruby on Rails, I'm probably going to be doing some interesting Ruby on Rails content. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.